In that sense, I am very close to Isa alayhi salatu salam. The only prophet who came after Isa, it's me. I am the one who came after him. So therefore, I am very close to Isa alayhi salatu salam. And our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in not one or two or three, but in hundreds of ahadith, in authentic ahadith, Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam described to his ummah, to his followers, Isa alayhi salatu salam. His full description has been mentioned by our beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. His hair are mentioned, the clothing he will be wearing is mentioned. And when we look at the Quran, not only Isa alayhi salatu salam is described, the whole family of Isa alayhi salatu salam has been described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His grandmother, she is mentioned in the Quran. And the pledge she made, it's also mentioned in the Quran. When his mother, Maryam alayhi salatu salam, was born, that is mentioned in the Quran. Her name is mentioned in the Quran. Who named her, it's mentioned in the Quran. Her upbringing, the upbringing of Maryam alayhi salatu salam has been mentioned in the Quran. And then who took care of Maryam alayhi salatu salam, it's mentioned in the Quran. And then when she conceived, Isa alayhi salatu salam is mentioned in the Quran. The birth of Isa alayhi salatu salam has been mentioned in the Quran. And after the birth, what she ate and what she drank, it's mentioned in the Quran. And when she brought her son to her family, her tribe, it's mentioned in the Quran. When her nation began to blame her, it's mentioned in the Quran. When her one day son Isa alayhi salatu salam began to talk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him speak. It's mentioned in the Quran. And then when he grew up, he received prophethood, is mentioned in the Quran. And then when he presented his call to the people, it's mentioned in the Quran. And the hostility of Banu Israel, Yahud, Jews is mentioned towards him, is mentioned in the Quran. The question is, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in detail mentions so much about Isa alayhi salatu salam, his family? Even our beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, upon whom the Quran has been revealed, has not been mentioned so much as Isa alayhi salatu salam and his family is mentioned in the Quran. This is the question which occurs, this is the thought which occurs in one's mind. Why is it? When one studies the Quran, he finds Isa alayhi salatu salam has been mentioned so much, so many times, his family so many times in details. His mother making a, his grandmother making a pledge is mentioned in the Quran. And when she is naming her daughter, is mentioned in the Quran. When the daughter is growing up and the question comes, who will take care of her? It is mentioned in the Quran. The question is, why is it so much about Isa and his family has been mentioned in the Quran? And then we look at the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He takes a task to mention to his followers, to inform his followers, to describe to his followers who Isa alayhi salatu salam was. The question is, why is it so much Isa alayhi salatu salam has been described by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and by the Quran? The question is, why his family has been mentioned so many times and with details in the Quran? Why? Even our beloved Prophet ﷺ has been mentioned so much. No any other prophet has been mentioned so much. No, the family of any prophet has been mentioned in the Quran. But when we look at Isa alayhi salatu salam, who is known in English as Jesus, why has he been mentioned so many times with details, how he will look like? It's mentioned in the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Everything is mentioned about Isa alayhi salatu salam. Why? What he will eat, it's mentioned by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What he will not eat, it's mentioned by Rasulullah. What he will wear and the color of his clothes has been mentioned in the hadith of Prophet ﷺ. The question is why? This is the question, why so much Isa ﷺ has been highlighted by Allah and by Prophet ﷺ. This is the question. My young brother, listen to this carefully. The answer to all this is, the whole reason behind mentioning the family of Isa and Isa himself so much and with details is because Isa, Allah has decided from day one that he will be taken to heavens, he will live there for centuries and centuries and centuries, and then he will return to dunya. Then he will return to dunya. There were high chances, may someone stand and he say, I am that promised Messiah. There were chances. And Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, that's what he did. You know what he said? I am that promised Messiah. The one who you are waiting for, that he will be returning. I am that one. I have come to you. I'm here. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the followers of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned by Rasulullah so that they don't remain in any doubt. If someone, when Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani claimed to be the Masih al-Ma'ud, the promised Messiah, the ulamas on the basis of these indicators in the Quran and in the Hadith, on the basis of these ahadith, on the basis of these verses of the Quran, they rejected him. You cannot be Masih, the promised Messiah. The promised Messiah has not come. He will come. You know, all the signs which are mentioned about Messiah, the promised Messiah, they do not fit in you. So the ulamas there, straight away, they rejected Mirza Ghulam Muhammad Qadiri. You cannot be the promised Messiah. You are the liar. You're the impostor. So Isa alayhi salatu wasalam was mentioned for this very reason. For this very reason. When he comes, the ummah should straight away recognize him because he has been mentioned. His description is fully mentioned in the Quran and the Hadith. By that description, or all those indicators which I mentioned, a believer, he will straight away say he is Isa, because all the signs which are mentioned by Prophet, they fit in him. All the description which is mentioned by Rasul, it fit in him. So he is Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. So then they will follow him. If they don't recognize him, they won't be supported, they won't help him. So this very reason, so that our iman remains safe. So that our iman and deen remains safe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned Isa alayhi salatu wasalam so many times with details. And let me tell you, the coming of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam is absolute. He will come. He who rejects and he who refuses the coming of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, he is not a Muslim. He is not a Muslim. So my young brothers, the Qadianis are very busy. They are working day and night, dragging our youth, dragging our young ones towards kufr by deceiving them. First of all, they deceive a Muslim by having a beard, by having a hat or turban, by wearing Islamic clothes, and by having an Islamic name. Keep in your mind, the Qadianis or the Ahmadis or the Mirzais, they are kafir. They are the worst kafir on this earth. Because a Jew, you know what he says? I am a Jew. A Christian, he says, I am Christian. But these kafirs, internally they are kafir, but from the appearance, what they say, we are Muslims. This is how they're deceiving the Muslims. So we need to be aware what's happening around us. We need to be sitting in the circles of the ulama ikram, ulama haq. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the tawfiq to act up to what we hear and say. Before I ask you to stand up for the students, I just want to say one more few things. There's a concept in our society nowadays, and this is my own personal, assessment. I think maybe I might be wrong. You might agree, you might disagree with me, but this is my own assessment. I think when you give money for the masjid, you give the money to the masjid with this thought that you will be rewarded. You will be rewarded. You give money, I will be rewarded. A palace will be, will be given to me in Jannat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build a palace in Jannat for me. I will get this reward. When it comes to feeding people, the people, the concept is we think there is no reward in this. So then we hesitate to cooperate or to give the money because our thought back of our mind is there is no reward in this. People coming to the mosque and you feed them, the program is taking place, we feed them. What's the point? I won't get any reward. For this very reason, this is what happens in the Ramadan. Even in the month of Ramadan, we hesitate to send food for the namazi, for those who will be opening the roza. Because back of our mind is no reward in this. Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, on one occasion he said to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "O Prophet of Allah, just tell me one amal through which I can go to paradise." He said, "O Prophet of Allah, just tell me one amal. If I do it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then should grant me paradise." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "You do 4 things, you will enter paradise." Do 4 things, you will enter paradise. One of them was وَأَطْعِمِ النَّاسِ, feed people. The ulama, they say feeding people, this includes the Muslims, the non-Muslims, your guests, poor people, destitute. Anybody comes to your house. Now you tell me, when a guest comes to your house, you entertain him, you feed him, you look after him. And I can tell you, there is another type of guests. Who is that? Who comes to the masjid of Allah, house of Allah. He is a guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, around us, everywhere, when the ulama ikram, when they arrange these gatherings, they have a food with it as well. In their mind is, these guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be coming to the masjid, and they will be coming for one purpose, to listen about Allah, about His Prophet, about pious people. So therefore they are our guests. We should entertain them, we should feed them. For this very reason they feed them, so that these people can attach themselves with Allah, with masajid, with the Quran, with pious people. If somebody comes to a bayan, and back of his mind, I'll go, I'll have a food, and he comes and listens to the bayan, then he attaches himself with the masjid. What else do you want? Something? By feeding the animals, you will be rewarded. When you feed an animal, you get reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what about feeding the ashraful makhluqat? Abdullah bin Salam radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, he was not Muslim then, he was a Jew. He said, the very first words which I have heard from the blessed mouth of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he entered Medina al-Munawwara, he said, the very first words I've heard from him, he was saying, feed people, Muslim, non-Muslim, whoever they are, feed them. Sometimes, this is our mentality. Some people say, "Oh, Maulana Sahib asking us for this program. The program is going to have this. He's asking for money. What doesn't he give? What doesn't he give?" Let me tell you, if you give to please me, then next time don't give a penny. But if you want to please Allah, Allah is such a being. If you give a penny, He appreciates. You give 1 penny for the sake of Allah, He will appreciate. And if you give for someone, if you give it, if your giving is dependent on me, I'll give, then you will give, then forget giving it. Don't give. My young brothers, keep one thing in your mind. If you don't give, if I say, till I am the Imam, everything will function. And if I go, the masjid will close. I'm telling you, Allah will bring someone better than me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. So never think, if I don't do it, this won't happen. This is your wrong thinking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is behind the scene who's doing everything. If I don't do it, someone else will come and do it. But if I do it, I'll get the reward. So never ever, put a condition, so and so is going to do it, then I'm going to do it. If you're going to do it, you will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So my young brothers, the program which we are having this Sunday, Sheikh Mumtaz al-Haq from London and Brother Adam in the community of youngsters, he is known Mr. Chippy. Brother Chippy, he is coming to your masjid. He's from Bradford. He's a convert Muslim. He's coming to your masjid. And inshallah, we will have a food after the program. And this program is for men and women, brothers and sisters. The sisters, they have a facility downstairs. Whenever we have a program, we have sisters also coming in and they sit downstairs. So I ask everyone, when these programs come, do cooperate. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you. And I will ask you to come yourself, spread the word, and bring your friends, your associates, whom you know, bring them. Tell your wife to come. Tell your brothers and your sisters, your daughters to come here. Because on the day of judgment, every one of you is guardian, and he will be asked about those who were dependent on him. You come to masjid and listen to the bayan. What about your mother? What about your sister? What about your wife? She's sitting at home. It is your duty that you make sure he listens something about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She connects herself with Allah. She connects herself with the masjid. She connects herself with the Quran. So on the day of death, we can tell Allah, we can say to Allah, Allah, I did my bit. I did my best to bring my wife close to you, bring my daughter close to you. So my brothers, don't forget this program. On Sunday after Maghrib prayer, the program will take place. And after the program, there will be food. And this program is for brothers and sisters. Now I will happily ask you to stand up for this announcement.